Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. Now, if you've been anywhere near the internet lately, you already know that a brand new Harry Potter series is coming to HBO. It's set to premiere Christmas 2026, with each of the 7 books getting its own season. If you somehow missed all of this, quite frankly, I'm amazed. The hype is still building, and the teaser trailer alone has amassed a whopping 10 million views so far. But there's one thing I want to explore above everything else, and that's whether or not we'll get the proper Voldemort. The teaser showed us quite a bit of the series, and with a December release date, it's obviously fully underway. But one character we still know nothing about is Voldemort. We obviously see a bit of a transition in Voldemort's character across the first couple of books, so it's possible that the Voldemort on the back of Quirrell's head won't necessarily line up with the full-bodied version of the character we see later on. This was the case for the original films, and the original films are actually a great place to start, because they had their own complicated history when it came to nailing Voldemort's look, a history that most people don't know about. In this video, we're going to be discussing the appearance of Lord Voldemort and the very different look that he nearly ended up having. Now, when the films first start up, Voldemort doesn't have his body back yet. Because of this, we see him sort of awkwardly shift from one form to the next, transitioning from a wisp to a face on the back of Quirrell's head, to a rudimentary form, and then finally into the form that we're all accustomed to. But what a lot of people don't know is that for one of Voldemort's earliest forms, the one where he possesses and shares a head with Quirrell, the makeup and props departments personally had very different plans for his appearance. Let's kick things off by looking at Voldemort's appearance in the Philosopher's Stone, a form he achieved thanks to the possession of Quirrell. The following excerpt from the book describes Harry's reaction to the initial unveiling of Voldemort's look. Petrified, he watched Quirrell reach up and begin to unwrap his turban. The turban fell away. Quirrell's head looked strangely small without it. Then he turned slowly on the spot. Harry would have screamed, but he couldn't make a sound. Where there should have been a back to Quirrell's head, there was a face. The most terrible face Harry had ever seen. It was chalk white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils, like a snake. "Harry Potter," it whispered. Now, the first thing worth mentioning about this hideous form of Voldemort is that it was played by a different actor, Richard Bremer, which for obvious reasons made him look different. The second thing worth mentioning is the inconsistency between the film adaptation and the book. Where the book describes Voldemort as having glaring red eyes, the film version shows Voldemort with a very different eye color. I can't quite make it out, but it definitely isn't glaring red. Next, the book describes him as having slits for nostrils. The film adaptation falls short here once again, showing Voldemort to have a full nose with regular-looking nostrils. And lastly, the book states that his face is chalk white. This was decently done by the film, but could have been chalkier. Overall, I was basically satisfied with the way that Voldemort looked in that film, but felt that there was definitely room for improvement. He was certainly creepy looking, but the most terrible face Harry had ever seen. Surely we should have been given something scarier. If only there was an alternate prop that they could have used to portray Voldemort. Oh wait, there is one. I present to you the design for the prop made for the Voldemort Quirrell head that never got any screen time. Now, if this isn't the most terrible face you've ever seen in a Harry Potter film, I don't know what films you've been watching. This thing gives Fenrir Greyback a run for his money. What you're looking at is the alternate design for the Dark Lord, something that they actually almost used in the films. Fortunately for your childhood bedsheets, they went with the other design. But it's interesting to imagine this being used in the films starring children across the world, rendering them unable to sleep ever again. What this photo reveals is that Voldemort was originally intended to have much more of a monstrous appearance, complete with animalistic features, sharp teeth, glaring eyes, and something that represents creature far more than man. Funnily enough, this design actually much more closely resembles the book's depiction of Voldemort's character, so I wonder why they didn't just roll with it. Perhaps film just wasn't ready for such a traumatic experience. Now, this prop gets brought up online from time to time, and there's always someone in the comments pushing back on it, and that's totally fair. One person on Reddit said something along the lines of, "Yeah, but he's not described as a snake man, he just has snake-like nostrils. The movie version is pretty much accurate, bar the red eyes. And that's not a totally wrong reading. The book doesn't describe Voldemort as a full-on creature, But I'd argue that slits for nostrils like a snake, chalk white, and the most terrible face Harry had ever seen leaves a lot of room for interpretation. The film gave us something relatively human-looking. Too human, in my opinion. The prop went too far the other way, sure. But the point isn't that the prop was perfect. The point is it shows there was a bolder direction available which the films didn't take. The red eyes alone would have made a massive difference. That one change, faithful to the text, and suddenly that face becomes a lot harder to forget. But overall, I was basically satisfied with the way that Voldemort looked in that film. And that brings us back to the big question. What will HBO do? Here's the thing, Voldemort hasn't even been cast yet. HBO boss Casey Bloys confirmed it again recently, saying, "I don't even know who we're casting. I really don't. I would take everything you read with a grain of salt." So all of the rumours floating around are just that, rumours. Names like Cillian Murphy and Paul Bettany have been thrown around a lot. Murphy flat out denied it and made a pretty funny point while doing so, saying he's very attached to his nose. And even Ralph Fiennes, the original Voldemort, weighed in, saying he was originally open to coming back, but that now that ship has sailed. But here's what really matters to me. The show is being pitched as a faithful book-first adaptation. That's the whole point of it. So hopefully we get the closest thing to Voldemort that Rowling actually wrote. Red eyes, slit nostrils, chalk white skin, something genuinely monstrous. The original films had reasons to hold back on that. Studio pressure, early 2000s makeup limitations, keeping it palatable for a younger audience. HBO in 2026 has none of those problems. Now the question is, will they play it safe again? Because personally, I think the sweet spot sits somewhere between that shelved prop design and what we got on screen in the original films. Something close to the books, but still grounded enough to work on camera. Overall, I'm happy with the direction that they went with Ralph Fiennes and prefer his portrayal to the Bremer version, but still feel that it could have been improved upon. With the HBO show, there's a real chance to finally nail it. The budget is there, the technology is there, and most importantly, the effort appears to be there. So come on HBO, give us the red eyes, give us the snake nostrils, and give us the most terrible face Harry had ever seen. We want nightmare fuel. What do you guys think? Which Voldemort would you have preferred to see? The one they actually used, or the design that was left to pick up dust? Also, who do you want to see play Voldemort in the upcoming series? I know there's a lot of names floating around there at the moment, but I honestly think Paul Bettany could do a bang-up job. Let me know down in the comment section below. Also, if you enjoy the content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live.